So one of the things I do here on the channel every single season is give you a few recruiting battles that, in my opinion, you must keep your eye on. And for me, well, they genuinely fascinate me. And today, that's exactly what we're going to do. Because today, we're going to talk about and break down the battle for a five-star prospect out the state of Texas that, dare I say, is a must-land prospect for the Oklahoma Sooners, the Texas Longhorns, and Texas A&M. Of course, today we're talking about and breaking down the battle for five-star offensive tackle out of Lewisville, Texas, Micheal Fasusi, and why this is one you need to know about. But before we can, as always, y'all know the drill. I got to hear from you. Hop down to the comments and let me know where you think he ends up. Give me an O for Oklahoma, a T for Texas, and an A&M for Texas A&M. Can't wait to see what you're thinking. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe. Hit that bell notification as I do constant college football content. You don't want to miss any of it. And if you enjoyed the content, be sure to like and comment down below, as those interactions seem small. They are massive to content creators such as myself. But having said all of that, let's jump right into this. And as I alluded to in the intro, this is a prospect that several colleges out there would love nothing more than to be in his final running. I mean, we're talking about a guy where if we look at the 24/7 Sports Composite, he comes in as the number 12 player nationally, the number 3 offensive tackle, and the number 5 player in the state of Texas. And I don't know if you've checked the rankings lately, but the state of Texas, as they always are absolutely loaded with talent. Specifically this North Texas region, it's actually insane how much talent is here. But whenever we're talking about Micheal Fasusi, this is a unique talent. 6'5", 295 pounds, and has incredible athleticism, which is exactly why so many colleges want him a part of their recruiting class. But for Texas, for Oklahoma, and for Texas A&M, this has become a must-land prospect, and we're going to go through each university in their pursuit of Micheal Fasusi and why he's such a big deal. We'll start with the Oklahoma Sooners, because Oklahoma is a team that I talk about all the time as having possibly the best offensive line coach in all of college football, Bill Bedenbaugh. Every single year, it seems like he takes an offensive line with some unknown pieces, and those unknown pieces end up going to the NFL draft. You look up 3 years later, and they're doing phenomenal in the league. It's a pattern. And I always talk about this. One data point, that can be meaningless. But whenever you have a bunch of points, that creates a line. And whenever you get a line, that's when you need to start taking note. And we have got to take note of the incredible job Bill Bedenbaugh does. But the reason why this is such a big deal for Oklahoma is because they were in it for another five-star offensive tackle, ironically, another five-star offensive tackle in North Texas, Ty Haywood, who plays for Denton Ryan. Now, Ty Haywood ended up going to Alabama, committing there. So whenever we're talking about the battle for Micheal Fasusi, this is a battle that now Oklahoma will be doubling down on. Now, let's get one thing understood. Oklahoma already has several offensive linemen in this class, including a 4-star offensive tackle that has absolutely flown up the recruiting boards, and I don't think he's done rising in the rankings. He is a name you have absolutely got to keep your eye out on, and that's Ryan Foget. But they would love nothing more than to double down, get this win for one of the top prospects in all of high school football, a top 15 player nationally, regardless of position, and what it would mean for the Sooners as they embark to the SEC. Because they've done a phenomenal job trying to recruit the trenches, both offensively and defensively. But if you can pull this 5-star prospect on the offensive line, it's going to be a ripple effect win. And what I mean when I say a ripple effect win, because this argument isn't just relegated for Oklahoma. This is an argument that you can carry over for Texas and for Texas A&M, is that whenever a guy like Micheal Fasusi commits to your class, there are effects that happen afterwards. It's like throwing a stone in the pond. You have your initial splash, but if you sit back and watch, there are ripples that form thereafter. Those ripples can be other prospects looking at Oklahoma, looking at Texas A&M and saying, hey, I want in on that. That's why he's such a big deal. It's not even just the caliber of player you're getting, it's what he can do for your recruiting class in terms of other guys wanting to join in. So for Oklahoma, you missed on Ty Haywood, But that doesn't mean you're going to miss on a 5-star offensive tackle who is still an incredibly elite player in Micheal Fasusi, and Oklahoma will be doubling down their efforts to try and land the very gifted prospect. Important to note, Oklahoma has done an incredible job of recruiting others that are close to Micheal Fasusi. Will that pay off? Remains to be seen. Let me know what you're thinking. We move forward to the Texas Longhorns. And whenever we talk about Texas in this recruiting cycle, it's very interesting. Because not long ago, I had people ask me, Ty, do you believe Texas is in trouble in this recruiting cycle? My answer remains no. Yes, we're in July. There are teams out there that are recruiting incredibly, but those teams have to maintain that level of recruiting. They have to keep recruiting the guys that have already committed to them, and it's a long way to go between now and whenever pen hits paper and early signing day. Because of that, I don't think you need to worry about any recruiting class that's ranked inside the top 20 right now. Sure, you might say, hey, we wish we would have won these battles, but the battles aren't finished until, once again, pen hits paper. And two, you have nothing but time and opportunity in front of you and very gifted prospects still on the board. And for Texas, that's exactly where they are. Because Texas is in a unique position right now. Everything I just said still stands, but if you are Steve Sarkisian, if you are Kyle Flood, if you are the Texas Longhorns, you need to get a big win in your state. You wanted DeCorian Moore. He ends up committing to Oregon. Now, that's a battle where Texas, I believe, will still chip away at, but who knows? Key Russ, one of the top players in the state of Texas, is committed to Alabama. Ty Haywood committed to Alabama. Alabama is battling Texas very hard for Khalil Lockett. If you're Texas, you don't necessarily have to win every battle in your state because, let's be honest, there are far too many fantastic recruiters parked in your state trying to get big wins, but you can't let all the top talent leave the state. And for Texas, Micheal Fasusi now becomes an even bigger deal because they want to shore up this offensive line, which Kyle Flood has done an incredible job at, and you want to send a message that, hey, yeah, y'all have gotten some big wins in Texas. Good for you. We're still the premier brand in this state. Come join the Longhorns. That's the message you're trying to send. And Micheal Fasusi, as we talked about just earlier, it's a ripple effect prospect. He can help you send that message. So for Kyle Flood, for Steve Sarkisian and the Texas Longhorns, it only makes sense that they're going to want to double, triple, and even quadruple down on this very talented player. You've had several guys that you've battled for that have chose to go outside of the state lines, and while that's not the end of the world because you're still a top 15 ranked recruiting class with nothing but time and opportunity to go, you do want to get these big wins where you can. And you have one right in the confines of your state. Oklahoma's after him, Texas A&M's after him, and if you're Texas, those are your two rivals. The last thing you want is to look up and a 5-star offensive tackle with Micheal Fasusi's talent end up at A&M, end up at Oklahoma, and you're sitting there even if you get a top recruiting class. That stings. There's no two ways around it. So I have no doubt that Kyle Flood will double down. Kyle Flood is an elite recruiter. I mean, that's one thing we have got to understand. Whenever we talk about Kyle Flood, the guy can develop talent. The guy, everywhere he goes, increases the ability of that offensive line, and he is a monster on the recruiting trail. So if he's in your ear, you're going to have a battle. So it's going to be fascinating to see what happens here. We move forward to the last team we're going to talk about today, and that's Texas A&M, because Adam Cushing is doing everything he can to try and gain the attention of Micheal Fasusi. And listen, A&M is a team I'm fascinated in. The hiring of Mike Elko is one that I actually believe will do wonders for Texas A&M. And if you are a Texas A&M fan that has clicked on this video, welcome. You may have seen a few of my videos in the past about Texas A&M, and if you'll remember, I wasn't a believer in Jimbo Fisher at all. Not even close. In fact, I often floated, what's the difference between Jimbo and Sumlin as opposed to what you're paying him? You're paying Jimbo Fisher so much more than you were paying Sumlin, and what'd you get for it? Less ranked wins, more group of 5 losses, less road ranked wins, all for a bigger paycheck. It didn't make any sense to me. But that being said, let it be known, I'm a believer in Mike Elko. And one of the things we talked about on stream not long ago was my belief in Mike Elko. I mean, when you look at what he inherited at Duke, it wasn't great. But it didn't take long for him to make his imprint on that program, where he exponentially increased the quality of both the offense and the defense within his first year. And that increase would have been seen into year two, was certainly seen into year two on the defensive side of the ball. But the offensive side of the ball took a step back because their star quarterback got hurt. A completely understandable situation, especially if you're a team that doesn't have the luxury of being able to stack incredible prospects and create that competitive depth. He was a huge piece to that team, so it makes complete sense if he takes an injury earlier in the season, your offense will take a step back. We understand that. So this is a guy that I think is a name you need to watch. And it makes complete sense to me whenever we look at Texas A&M, and they're still doing big things on the recruiting trail. Now, will you be able to compete with two coaching staffs that have been there longer, that have been assembled longer? That's going to be tough. Not impossible, but it will be tough. Because in theory, Fasusi has longer standing relationships with the coaching staff at Oklahoma, with the coaching staff of the Texas Longhorns. And that's something we have to wonder, how big of an impact will that have? But at the end of the day, if you're Texas A&M, you want to send a signal. You want to send a message. With this new coaching staff, we're ready to make an impact. And there's no better way to do that than by getting yet another big-time addition on the offensive line, where Texas A&M already has 5 offensive line commits. But none bigger than Micheal Fasusi. So at the end of the day, this is a prospect that pretty much every college out there wishes they were in the final running for. He is incredibly gifted. He is a ripple effect prospect, and the question remains, where will he end up? Can't wait to hear from you. Hop down to the comments and let me know what you're thinking. That's it. See ya.